Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia offers free rental and towing. Their excellent service and quality work is always guaranteed. And any military or public service employees can receive up to $500 off their deductibles. Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia, where we meet by accident. Find us online at carsbodyshop.biz.
When fire and water threaten your community, hand the cleanup over to the team that stays with you every step of the way in your journey back. ServPro, like it never even happened.
We cover the local stories you want to hear. From Apple Valley to Hesperia to Adelanto to Victorville. Valley Insider Podcast, elevating the high desert like never before.
Welcome to the show. This is Valley Insider. I'm Andrew Caravella, and we're having a intimate conversation here with Michael Ricotta. He represents Rally West. It's a new party that's forming here in California. Now, I've talked to Michael a little off camera, and just to let everyone that's listening know, we don't really do a whole lot of politics. I mean, but we do. And most people know I like to really poke the horse sometimes to really get the response and get the answers. And it's kind of what we're doing today. We're going to poke that horse because I need to understand.
Donkey or elephant, as the case may be.
Right. Because I need to understand. I need to really understand what it is so I have better comprehension. And I think, well, since, this show is local to the high desert, I mean, people in the high desert may be of interest to want to join Rally West. So we need to poke that horse. We need to understand it.
I think the proverbial elephant is dead on the living room floor. The elephant in the room needs to be poked and maybe moved aside for some fresh ideas. I don't know about the donkey. I don't know how that's doing. But generally speaking, I think that our message is catered specifically for the high desert. What is our message? That life comes first. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Yes, as Americans, that's what we're entitled to. But you can't have happiness without being free, liberty. And you can't have a liberty without being alive. So I think there needs to be a focus on saving people's lives from several disasters that we're going through. And I think that appeals to the high desert.
And I noticed on your website, which is homerunusa.org.
Yes, sir.
You guys have this baseball theme. I think even the flag is like a baseball theme. Very American,
Well, that's, that was one of the reasons we chose it. But fundamentally, the reason we chose it is because politics in America, I would say, isn't confusing. It's been obfuscated. And I think there's more division going on in this country than in a fifth grade math book, right? There's a lot of division that's,
Well, and it's not even, you're either here or here. There's multiple sections that you can be divided into.
That's a keen point, Andrew. And it's not just, it's a fracturing is what we're seeing. It's an ongoing organic or disorganic process. What began as right and left, your side and my side, has kind of fractured. We saw this happening in history in the 60s and the 70s as the parties kind of realigned and de-aligned. But fundamentally what you have now is a collection of smaller groups, each with their own narrative, each with their own source of news and information, because technology has provided us that. But the reality and the consequence is you have now about 5 groups inimical to each other who are just growing more hateful as the days go on, at a time when we need to be trying together in Christian love. And I think that that's not acceptable. That whether someone is coming from the 3 words I want to get rid of if I were to solve the social problems, political problems of America: conservative, liberal, and libertarian. Conservative and liberal because they don't mean anything. When I say I'm a conservative, what do I mean? Oh, I like old sofas? No, it's
very probable, though.
It's quite probable. There's minimalist conservatives too, I'm sure. But those words are full of hate and division. If someone's a liberal, I'm not trying to actually identify what they believe. I'm trying to come up with certain markers I can use to target them and destroy them, at least ideologically or in a debate.
Well, you mentioned libertarian also, and I wanted to cover that because liberty is one of the things that you guys believe in on the Rally West website, which is, if you look at the definition, state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life. I have libertarian friends, and they actually believe that. that. Though. I mean, that's what their belief is.
Yes, but the proper clause of that sentence you just read, that liberty statement, would you read the second part again?
Oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life.
Yeah. So there, I'm sorry.
That is a libertarian belief, though, right?
There was society in that definition, wasn't there? At some
yes,
point?
free within society.
Within society. So I think the focus on liberty has been entirely, or let me take a step back. I think that generally when we talk about liberty, we're all focused so much on the act of being free that we don't look at the prefatory clause there. We don't look at the second part that it's free within a society, that we are not universes unto ourselves. We cannot do whatever we like. We have to do something within the framework of a society. So that's what liberty is. And we believe that liberty stands on a safe and fair society. Without society, liberty is an amorphous concept. So it's true that your friends who are focused on their own freedom, that makes them libertarians, but I'd say that that's harmful because libertarianism is a kind of a constant chipping away at the idea that there is a community, that we're together. Now, of course, it's common sense in every country since, 1750, I would say at least, that people should have freedoms. We've always known that. It's intrinsic to the human condition. But that chipping away of libertarianism, which isn't just freedom to exist within a community, but a kind of almost go at your own, I'm in charge of everything, I'm the judge of everything measure. That is harmful to I think that's the political life of this country, if we want it to be a healthy life, along with the loaded phrases conservative and liberal.
So, anti-death, you guys are against abortion.
Yes.
But I want to talk about that, right? I know, we're only not even 10 minutes in.
Here we are. We haven't talked about guns yet, but guns can come up next.
Let's just, these are the issues.
But you see, in a way that shows the libertarian domination, that the way they process arguments dominates the narrative. Libertarians are very trendy. They're very clever people. They're nice people. They're intelligent people. But they've hijacked the narrative. And so we're talking here about, which I'm happy to talk about, but we're talking about abortion and guns, conceivably, at the beginning of the interview. And so that just shows their influence. And that influence needs to be counteracted.
All right. So with going forward with abortion, but there's an alternative. There's a dark alternative to the idea that we don't have abortion, right? And before Roe v. Wade, there were alternative solutions to aborting a baby, in hotel rooms and things of that nature. A very, very dark time in our history.
Absolutely correct.
So how do we explain being against abortion when if we reverse things? Things will go back to the way that they were, because we all know history does repeat itself.
Well, at first is what did Marx say? At first is folly, then is a joke, or at first is tragedy, then is comedy. Mm-hmm. History repeats. First is tragedy, and then it's a comedy. So I think that it's a tragic issue. Let's look at it first of all.
Right.
But let's not discuss it here at the end with the abortion. Let's talk about the beginning. What are we doing to create a culture of life? To where let's not talk about so much about how are we going to shut down abortion clinics here and there, which, I have to say I would be in favor of. And we're talking about a culture. I don't believe in coincidences, and I think we just that just when we were talking about abortion, that happened. So I think that's this is a tragic issue, and it's not about just the woman having an abortion at like an abortion clinic at the end. That we should be doing everything we can to prevent it getting to that stage.
Right, and I've had this conversation with a lot of different types of people and different political views. And
interject very briefly. The most tragic thing about a woman going to an abortion clinic, among many tragedies, is that she's probably going alone. Where's the boyfriend? Where's the husband? It's not often she's guided there by them, is it? It's a sign of that broken relationship. I mean, if that's where we need to start the healing. We need to create a culture of relationships again.
The problem, though, is that we already have a major dysfunctionality in younger couples and relationships and families overall in this country now than in the 50s or 60s or 40s and stuff. It's not the healthiest, and bad decisions will be made, but we can't control what happens in people's personal lives as far as that goes.
Not. And it always backfires if you try to do that.
So assuming for a second that we've already taken the measures to prevent pregnancies, of the nature, things are still going to happen. And when they happen, somebody getting pregnant, what are we supposed to do? And the idea that, if and again, I don't know the solution once we get to that point. Like, okay, so person's pregnant. So what are our solutions? Well, you can give the kid up for adoption. There's also the safe surrender things at I think almost every fire station and hospital in the country.
In the world, nearly.
Right. And unfortunately, some people still won't do that, right? And then you find out on the news of like a dead baby, in a dumpster or whatnot. And it's sad. It's sad to believe that this is still happening. It's almost like the abortion would have been a better solution than to do that. So I guess, I don't know, maybe it's a catch-22, maybe it's a double-edged sword. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right?
If we can get to the point where if we can, our party would be perfectly willing to work with agencies that facilitate what might be called abortion or women's choice. Let's have a dialogue with Planned Parenthood. We both want to, none of us are in favor of abortion. Why don't we work together to try lower the rates? Like, if we can decrease it by 10% a year in the aggregate, then we're making progress.
Working together, that's
because no one wants the abortion to happen in the end. Except, I think it's fair to say that actual final acts of abortion, no one really wants that. No person would want to do that if there were any kind of better alternative. Not just to that point, but if you want to think metaphysically or philosophically, think about any of the millions of alternatives that could have happened. That's the least likely that anyone does want to happen. So if we can get to the point where it's just those few cases, wow, what progress we would have made, because we don't just have a disrespect for life in this country, we have almost a death cult. That's really what I would call it. You have so many people embracing death in so many awful forms, on the left and the right, if you will, that it's, being alive is important. And it's tragic that people don't seem to care about living.
Yeah. Again, we were here with Michael Ricotta from the Rally West. You're the chair of Rally
Pro
West?
Tem. I'm the Pro Tem chair.
You're the Pro Tem chair of Rally West. We're going to take a quick break from our sponsors, and when we come back, we have some goodies coming up on the podcast with Rally West, including Governor Gavin Newsom's infamous recall. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia offers free rental and towing. Their excellent service and quality work is always guaranteed. And any military or public service employees can receive up to $500 off their deductibles. Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia, where we meet by accident. Find us online at carsbodyshop.biz.
When fire and water threaten your home, hand the cleanup over to the team that stays with you every step of the way in your journey back. ServPro, like it never even happened.
Welcome back to Valley Insider. I'm Andrew Caravella here with Michael Ricotta. He is the Pro Tem for the Rally West Party here in California, trying to make it a statewide thing.
Trying to qualify as a statewide party.
Trying to qualify.
So that's the
There's
threshold.
a lot that goes into that, right?
Well, there is, and we have a dedicated core now of officers and party members. It's very hard to get member specifics at this point, but judging from my own election, or my own attempted election, I might say, last fall, and the membership we had then, we're in the thousands.
That's good.
It's easy to say that we're in the thousands, and we do believe that our message is specifically catered for the high desert, although it's for all of California. We're trying to get qualified as a state party, which means we would be on the ballot from here on out, which means we could advocate for the people of California from here on out. And so we need to get about 70,000 signatures for that. That's the threshold we need.
And they can find more info, obviously, on the website,
Yes.
homerunusa.org. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Newsom.
Yes.
Governor Gavin Newsom's recall. You guys say you're against it. 2 million have already signed the petition.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure those aren't all Republicans. I'm sure some of those are Democrats also on there. That's a huge number. I mean, these are like Gray Davis times all over again. But you guys are against it. You guys say it's a waste of time to do this?
Well, you could say it's Gray Davis-like times, but there is no even indication that Governor Newsom was trying to, or did what Governor Davis had done with the energy scandal and all that. What was it called? Not Solyndra. That was the Clinton scandal. It was the What's the name of that? Enron. The Enron company. Remember them?
I was a young lad.
Yeah.
But yes,
a little older than you.
I vaguely remember it.
Enron. Ken Lay and Enron. I think that the recall attempt for Governor Newsom isn't interesting in and of itself. What is interesting is that it's endemic to the entire political process in America now. As soon as someone gets into office, the recall begins. So I don't think, and I think our party's position is that there is not enough grounds for recall on Governor Newsom. But don't we have a few more important issues, California, to be talking about right now than Governor Newsom's recall? What about the fact that there's neighbors of ours dying left and right from a pandemic that's still just...
This is true.
Yeah.
This is absolutely true. But I think the problem that people have with Newsom...
It's an easy answer. Attacking somebody is an easy way to deal with the stress.
But don't you think he's detached from the actual average Californian citizen? He just doesn't...
What does that mean, detached?
He's detached. Like, he makes decisions and he thinks it's in the best interest of the middle class, which is the majority of the people that probably voted for him. But
Certainly.
yet it's like day and night. Like, the decisions he makes, the way he talks, he doesn't really understand the main focus of the wants and needs of Californians.
That's exactly it. And it's
is that fair to say?
It's fair to say, but it's not just Governor Newsom. It's the entire apparatus of the existing parties. They're so concerned about pleasing a number of their key support groups, and they're so concerned about meeting a few strange points of general
but him
ideal.
being the leader of California and how democracy works, you get
He's
rid of...
lost sight. You're right. He is... Well, I wouldn't say he's detached. I would say he never was interested in solving our fundamental problems.
But good example, though. Good example is the whole restaurant thing where he went to the French Laundry and stuff.
So loud they had to close the screens.
Right. But I mean, that is a valid point. Like, you want us to be on lockdown, but yet you're allowed to go do that because it doesn't apply to you. You know what I mean? But that's common sense, right?
You're right, silly me. Before we actually started recording, we had a conversation about integrity in government.
Yes, we did.
You still expect that? I'm sorry, my bar's a little different.
But those are just those little moments that people don't forget, and it's just like, well, that's evidence right there that you don't understand what we're going through.
You hit the nail on the head. Take a look at a moment at some vignettes of politics in America we have right now. We have the we have the Newsom recall. We had before that we had the impeachment of Trump, second time. Before that we had that thing that happened in the Capitol building. Before then we had the well, you could name it.
Right.
We have just a whole ghastly panorama of not nice things happening in the past few years in this country. And this is collectively our politics. Something that is really either so tragic that it's heartbreaking or so tragic that it's just humiliating in a way to see these things happening in your country. This is our politics now. And you're telling me, this is just some big third person,
Right.
You're telling me that our political system is not broken? I mean, our political system was on fire just a few weeks ago. And before then, you had the riots going on with Antifa and BLM. You have all these just horrible events that are showing the breakdown of our society itself. And you're telling me, California, there's no problem? California, there is a very serious problem. And unless we address the roots of this problem, we're not just talking about the collapse of the stock market. We're talking about the collapse of our neighborhoods and our communities and our society.
It could be possible that, we were sold on a certain brand of Kool-Aid, Newsom, and people were like, oh, that wasn't the purchase that I originally made at the store. I would like to return it. You know what I mean?
If this is the market they're going to, I wouldn't like to be anywhere near it. This, where they're buying this. Because consider this. On the one hand, you have a kind of Wild Bill Hickok, right-wing, not right-wing, I might say, conservative view, where it's like free economy or free, low taxation, libertarianism. And then on the other side, you have I would say more of a European mold, like a leftist party like the Democrats. But, on the point is that you have two radically different ideologies alternating all the time. And we wonder why we have a schizophrenic politics in America. We're going from one extreme to the other. Well, not really to the extreme, from one moderation to the other, back and forth, but there's no continuity. So, you're going 1 year from having George Bush as president, then you have someone like Obama with his different policies, especially as regards to taxation. Then boom, President Trump, and now to President Biden.
A lot of Californians do believe and identify, and by Californians, I don't mean Democrats or Republicans, I just mean Californians in general, do identify that having a Republican governor works better for a Democratic government in California. There's a lot of people that do believe that. And whether or not there's any truth to that, I don't know, because I didn't do a deep dive to look into that.
I think Californians want people and want to elect people who are interested in them. And we haven't had a chance to discuss this, but very briefly, our party is really angry that the Democrats and the Republicans don't provide more services to their members. What do the Democrats or the Republicans provide to you? Think about it. What organization has similarly as much power in your life as them? And what do? Maybe you get one phone call every 2 years or 4 years. That's the extent of how they're communicating with you. What if you had a party that was devoted to its members all the time, open 6 days a week, 7 hours a day? You have a problem? Well, you vote for us to represent you. Why don't you come tell us what your problem is?
It's the idea of a new opportunity and a new chance if we get rid of Newsom, I think.
Well, just kidding. You're very interested in getting rid of Newsom. I mean, maybe you have like a dog in this fight. But no, it's, I think that, well, to get rid of Newsom is not the issue. To have something in there that works is the issue. And who are we going to replace Newsom with?
Well, then that's a good question. I know there's a lot of people that are
they're chomping at the bit, which is probably
up.
why there's such a big recall effort, because everyone wants their place. But you can't just get rid of someone to have someone else immediately take power. It's like
this is true. That is true.
And that's what we're getting. I mean, at a time like this, for the past few months, the majority of American government, not just California government, but American government has been obsessed with recalls and impeachments. At a time like this, our infrastructure is one shade away from disintegrating. And where's the discussion about saving our infrastructure? Climate change is, I understand where people who support that paradigm are coming from. I understand what their view is. But isn't it more important right now than to worry about the icebergs than to worry about getting water from point A to your house so your family doesn't experience, thirst?
So Senator Feinstein, has about 19 or so different key issues in California, according to her website. The ones that I picked out specifically that I keep seeing reoccurring on social media and with people that live in California that seem to be the most important are economy, education, healthcare, and climate change, or the idea of using renewable energy to combat climate change. I would like to talk a little bit about that. You guys don't necessarily have a stance on climate change, but you guys do have somewhat of a stance on renewable energy.
We have a stance on what we believe that Californians want. And what we believe Californians want is low-cost energy. And especially at a time like this, when we're facing what must be said is not just a problem of every 100 years. What we're dealing with right now, my fellow Californians, and I think it's important to recognize this, is a centuries or a millennia long event. That is, it doesn't happen for millennia, but these kind of catastrophes only happen once in a millennia. Not since the collapse of the Roman Empire has any civilization has been fundamentally challenged as ours over the past year, economically, socially, and politically. And unless we overcome these very serious shortfalls, then we may not have a society to talk about. Now, this isn't fear-mongering, but you saw last June, California, how close we came to pandemonium. Now, this isn't to dodge your point.
Yeah.
So we do believe in cheap energy. However we get cheap energy is the best way to do it. Now, we're not talking about just wholesale looting the environment or something, or not treating the environment correctly. But for example, nuclear. Why aren't we building more nuclear power plants in the state of California to provide cheaper energy for the citizens?
Well, let me ask you
more
this.
coal plants, indeed.
Well, let me ask you this, because Biden has restored the Desert Renewable Energy Conservation Plan, which is public land that will continue to be protected while ensuring renewable energy projects
Wind farms
needed to achieve California's 100% clean electricity target and making sure it's developed responsibly. That immediately affects Southern California, but more hyper-focused the deserts. So I guess my question is, with renewable energy and with that, is this a good thing? Is this a good thing that Biden is doing, that your party believes in?
Well, I think that it shows that it's good that the president cares about the Mojave River Valley, and I think it's good for him for providing us basically a subsidy. I think that's what it is. It's a spending earmark.
But the environmentalists, they'll say that we're hurting the land and this isn't good for the environment.
This is a question I'd like to pose to both the people on the right and the left in the audience. I want you to seriously ask yourself a question. Is really now the time to be talking about environmental issues in the long term in your life? Do you not want short-term guarantees of stability or short-term guarantees of stability for low energy, no more taxation, and health care for everybody at a basic level, at a life-saving level? Shouldn't we be asking those questions now? When our society is flush with cash again, I don't remember the last time that happened, but when California is booming again, when it's golden again, when you have jobs not an issue at all, maybe then we can talk about the environment, and then we can talk about significant moves to save.
So it's not as important as other issues. Okay.
Life comes first. Human life comes
All
first.
right. But we already talked about that. So what about economy? Is that a major issue right now?
Yes, the economic life of this country, this state comes first.
All right, so let's talk about that. Minimum wage. Should we be wherever inflation says we should be, or is it right where it needs to be right now? Or should it be on the federal level? Should we make $7 something an hour?
Those are very similar. Those are not really. They're sort of dissimilar in a way. Let's talk about minimum wage first.
Sure.
The focus on the minimum wage is, I think, less important than the focus on seeing generally more success in every sphere. A rising tide does lift all boats. So I think to get to that point where everybody is living a life of material abundance, and as much as they can partake in it, I think that shouldn't be regulated by the government, the minimum wage. The focus should be on providing more roots of growth, not just for the worker, but for the company itself. There needs to be a focus on getting business moving in California again.
Wait a second, hold on. But you just said that the government shouldn't regulate the minimum wage. So it should be the company or the business should decide what the wage value is?
The idea of a minimum wage, why are we so fixated on it? It's the minimum wage, what it is, I think, economically speaking, at the brass tacks level, is a point we put on someone's income to say this is what you need to make.
The reason though that we're mentioning it is because according to the U.S. Census, the average American in this country overall that makes minimum wage is 35 years old. That's the workforce.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know whether the minimum wage is something that's a sustainable living for people that are, performing subpar, or that's just good enough for them, versus somebody that wants to excel and advance. Not everybody needs a doctorate or a master's or a bachelor's degree. Some people are just fine doing the 9 to 5 clock in, clock out, and finding out where a viable minimum wage is for those particular jobs and industries is very important.
Well, everyone needs a good living. Everyone needs a decent living.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, no. It's a fair point. But
I'm sorry to throw you off.
No, I'm not trying to let me just. The minimum wage issue is a very important issue because it cuts to the heart of how people provide for themselves economically. But I think that the focus on that point itself, for example, this is going towards universal basic income. This discussion of minimum wage as we conceptualize it now is going towards UBI. And I don't know how that comes from any kind of cap the government could put on what people do or don't earn. And the minimum wage, I think in the final analysis, is not as important as a guarantee by the government that you can have a job that provides for yourself and your family and is a job of dignity and a job of work at the same time. I think that rather than the government saying, here is a minimum wage or here is a maximum wage, which will come eventually if we do have the minimum wage, there will be the maximum wage limit. Instead of that, isn't it better to say, we're going to provide you and your family with work? Not we're going to do it as the government, but it's government's responsibility to make sure that you can get a good job. How do you do that? Well, through a number of approaches, not just caps on spending. But at the very narrow level, no, there should be no minimum wage and there should be no regulation on it in terms of the tools used by fiduciary institutions, like the, what have you, the Fed or something like that, or the management of employee agencies.
All right. Education. That's a big thing
Education
too.
in California is at a critical point.
Is it broken, like the whole 2-year and 4-year traditional college route, or is there a way to certain types of education that we're not exploring that we should be exploring? Like where do you guys stand on education as a whole?
To say that it's broken is an incredible understatement. It's shattered, and
bad.
it's in a black trash bag outside of the school. That's where it is right now.
Is it because, and we're talking about higher education for the moment here.
Yes.
Is it because it's just too expensive to go to college? What do you guys think about higher education?
The rising cost of everything, and I don't mean to ditch the minimum wage, but I mean, now I can appreciate where you're coming from with this and kind of the angle where you're going with it. How does someone's decreased spending power impact them in a world of increased costs? To put it like that. Everything we earn is far less than what we need to live right now. And I would say with colleges themselves, it's not the issue of paying for them, because that's, I think, been kind of commensurate with the other loan things, the increase in loans we've taken in other spheres. For example, private institutions who charge incredible rates, like for-profit universities, not the fly-by-night ones, but for-profit ones in general, have put a lot of people in debt, serious college debt. But I don't think that a rise in the cost of college itself is as important as what you said earlier. What are we asking children to become? So why do we go to school? Why are you going to college? Well, does everyone need to go to college? I think that focus towards vocational education for some students and a retooling of college to be a 4-year program into a more applicable 2-year program or series of 2-year programs would serve us much better.
Really interesting, very interesting. All right, well, let's talk about K through 12.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that listen or watch the show that have families, have kids. Where do we stand overall in the state of California with education, and does it need to be modified?
The coronavirus over the past year has put us in a position to where students may more or less lose about 3 years of their total education.
That's about accurate, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and when you consider that takes place in an environment where education is, we need more education for our students to be more versatile in an increased competitive environment, increasingly competitive environment, that's bad. I mean, this is a time bomb waiting to go off. But, why is education so shattered? It wasn't just the coronavirus which put that big hit on it. We fundamentally are not teaching children what they need to learn. We're so caught up now, and there's so many foci other than content in our schools that our students are not going to be able to compete. There's a problem in California, and that problem is the teachers' union. The way the teachers' union is able to lock teachers in place who really have no business teaching. They're not teaching correct material. They're not maintaining their classrooms. There's a lot of dead weight in the profession of education, and it's no mistake. It's no mistake that every member of our party's officer or leadership, you might say, we're all educators. Every single one is an educator either in secondary school or in primary school. And we entered into this party, the genesis of our party was seeing how woeful the billions of dollars that were given to the California state schools was wasted. The woeful waste going on half-baked programs that didn't materialize. Are we going back? Are we having a hybrid program? Are we having a stay-at-home program? This at a time when parents need to be sure that their children are being looked after by the education system. It's going around like a ping pong ball between one extreme and the next. And no one says for a moment, excuse me, school board, what are you doing? Where are you spending our billions of dollars? Where are you spending our billions of dollars? How are you protecting our children right now? And there was a total lack of any leadership, not from generally the teachers, but from the overall infrastructure. We should have had a procedure in place to where if a calamity did happen, there would be a continuity of education ensured. And we let people just be terrorized without any answers. And this must not be allowed to happen again. Your children deserve and are entitled to a safe education in a safe environment. And you should know far ahead of time if that was going to be a virtual or a hybrid program or in person, and it should not be changing. So there needs to be a serious overhaul of education in California to protect the children, to protect their lives, and to ensure parents' peace of mind.
I want to finish up with you today about healthcare. It's another touchy subject nationwide, but also here in California. Is there anything that's currently intact with the Affordable Care Act that works? Is there anything that needs to be changed? Is there anything that would help benefit people even more?
Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? You mentioned at the beginning of our talk the baseball theme, but it's true. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and of them all, life comes first. It is irresponsible, we believe as a party, it is irresponsible for the government in this day and age not to provide and ensure that its citizens have a basic level of health care. That's number one. Every citizen in California deserves to have a level of health care, not a kind of a stolen part of Medicaid or a vestigial part of Medicare, but a true basic health care plan provided to them by the state of California.
But people would say that's a socialist view, wouldn't they?
What is socialism? I mean, what is socialism? I'm sure that could be taken as a bad clip. Yeah. But the people I know.
You understand, though, right? What I'm saying?
The people we know, are they worried about issues about, do we have enough venture capitalism in our society, or we should have a little more market socialism? No, they're worried about their children living. What I care about is when I see a child who's sick, a mother who's sick, a father who's sick, and they have no health care. Because, incidentally, those people are workers, too. They're members who provide income for our society. So purely on that level, we should ensure that people are healthy. But on a more humanistic level, no, we do need to provide our neighbor with health and security and with stability.
As a state.
As a state.
Yes.
And so where are we going to get the money for that? We have several exciting new routes for funding that, we believe. And you can check out our website, homerunusa for that.org. But we do need to provide health care. Once we provide health care, once we have that basic level of health, then we can begin to engage each other as a community again. What do I mean by that? I mean that we can move from a focus on divisiveness to a move towards greater unification. I said to you before the program, and I think it's apt to say here, segregation in the United States was ended, and integration in the United States was fostered by the Christian religion. You cannot separate what Martin Luther King did from what he was, which was a Christian minister. And I think that a focus on healthcare for citizens, a focus on Christian goodness for the community, not legislating morality, not by any means doing that, but promoting a culture of do unto others as you should have them do unto you, of having a gold standard of morality, then moving on to having a sound economy. You can't talk the minimum wage of income without talking about the minimum wage of spirit. What are people making right now spiritually? People are dead spiritually. People are dead as a community. We need to love one another before we can build companies together and help them succeed. That's the level we're at. I'm not concerned really so much about financial specifics right now as keeping our financial system as in existential terms alive. So that's what I would say in terms of healthcare, that it belongs in the overall care of society, which belongs in a party that cares about you and can take care of you.
All right, Michael Ricotta, he is the pro tem for pro tem chair for Rally West, trying to qualify as an official party here in the state of California. If you want more info on Rally West, you can go to homerunusa.org. Again, homerunusa.org. Michael, I want to thank you for your time today on Valley Insider.
Today's show is sponsored by ServPro of Hesperia and Apple Valley, like it never even happened. And by Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia, where we meet by accident. Valley Insider Podcast is hosted by Andrew Caravella, directed by Tom Bradshaw, executive producer Tim Harris, producer Andrew Caravella, camera operator Lamont Turner, creative consultant Stella Montoya, edited by Fastlane Media, recorded at KVVB.TV studios in Victorville, California. Make sure to subscribe on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, or Apple Podcasts. I'm Shane Churchill. We'll see you next time on Valley Insider.
In this time of uncertainty, taking steps to prepare can help us all find a sense of security. At ServPro, helping our nation's homes, businesses, and shared spaces be cleaner and safer is why we're here in your community, here to help.
Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia offers free rental and towing. Their excellent service and quality work is always guaranteed. And any military or public service employees can receive up to $500 off their deductibles. Collision Auto Repair Specialist in Hesperia, where we meet by accident. Find us online at carsbodyshop.biz.